3 black SUVs idled at my gate, exhaust curling in the cold. The woman in the gray suit held a clipboard like a weapon. "You've got 3 hours to join the HOA or vacate," she said, eyes tracing my fence line like she already owned it. I took the papers, font, wrong seal too. Light watermark off-center. "Funny, I told her you filed this under a county that doesn't even cover my ridge." Her smile froze. Behind her, the engines kept purring. The red light in the pine tree blinked once, recording everything. That's when I decided to drive straight to the county clerk. The coffee steamed in my hand when the first SUV nosed around the last switchback. Tires hissed on gravel. A second and third followed black paint catching the early light like a smile that didn't mean well. "Mr. Ashford," a woman called, stepping out as if the mountain answered to her. Scarlett Peaton, Green Valley Mountain Estates Homeowners Association. "We need to discuss your compliance status." "I'm listening," I said. My porch boards creaked. The rooster down by the coop punctuated the morning like a metronome that had kept time since 1938. She didn't wait for an invite. 2 men in matching navy suits flanked her. Another man clutched a briefcase hard enough to leave fingerprints in the leather. 4 security types spread out and tried to look casual, eyes skipping over my fence line, my tool bench, my mailbox. Everything I owned like it was already cataloged. "Per our bylaws," the briefcase man announced, "you have 3 hours to join the association, or face immediate relocation under emergency protocols." 3 hours, I repeated. That your idea of neighborly Peaton set a folder on my porch table and fanned papers with a practiced hand. Official-looking seals winked under the sun. One page read in bold type, "Mandatory HOA Membership Order." Another, "Environmental Impact Assessment." A third sheet carried a fat stamp filed Farser 12, Euro 7, received 03-17. I set my mug down. "Mind if I look?" "Please do," she said, chin high. I lifted the first page by its edges. The paper was too light. The font on the letterhead didn't match county standard. The seals embossed didn't bite the stock. "Who signed this, Commissioner Waller?" the lawyer said too fast. "Funny," I said. "He retired 5 years ago." The lawyer adjusted his glasses and rifled his briefcase. One of the security guys drifted toward the pines, checking sight lines he had no right to check. "You're not compliant," Peaton went on. "Unpermitted outbuildings, access road obstructions, non-conforming fencing. Dues are $50,000 with $25,000 infrastructure assessment. Pay by noon. Join by noon. Or we move to relocation assistance." "Relocation," I said. "From the home I built in '78. She smiled like a form letter. "We support property values, Mr. Ashford." I studied the signatures. "These don't match any county commissioner I've known. 25 years wearing a badge trains your eye, and the font's wrong for the state letterhead." "Sir," the lawyer said, already reddening, "refusing to cooperate will complicate your situation." "Authority doesn't arrive with a countdown," I said. A small blink caught my eye beyond Peaton's right shoulder. Not firelight. Not sunlight. A bead of red, low in a pine, winked once and went dark. "What's your bar number?" I asked the lawyer. He pretended not to hear, then coughed and reshuffled. One security man checked his watch. Another kept his gaze on my truck tires like he was measuring them for nails. Peaton tapped the order. 3 hours is generous. We can do this amicably. Amicable's a 2-way road. I turned the page to the back, held it up. The watermark was wrong. Cheap bond. "Who printed these, Mr. Ashford?" she said. "Don't make this harder than it needs to be." The rooster called again, closer now, as if the bird knew the ritual. Wind slipped through the porch rail and lifted the corner of a page. From below the lip of the table, another stamp bled through the thin stalk, received 03-17. Like time itself was a witness. I set the papers down and looked past them to my valley. 2 miles of fir and aspen. A gravel road I graded with my own hands. A gate I welded on a winter weekend and painted the color of stubborn. "You want to talk compliance," I said. "Let's start with jurisdiction. Where's your filed plat? Where's your county entry? Where's your authority to be on this mountain? We don't need to produce internal documents for a preliminary site visit, the lawyer said. Then you won't mind if I don't produce a check. A security guard stepped half a pace forward. Peaton lifted a hand and froze him in place with her fingers. No one is threatening you, she said. You brought 12 people in a stopwatch, I said. Feels like pressure. Pressed, she corrected, smiling. Pressed by standards. I let the remark hang. Silence can be a lever. The mountain knows how to make quiet heavy. Mr. Ashford Peaton said softer now. Our inspection teams will be back at 11:30. If you're enrolled, we can expedite your compliance. If not, you'll help me relocate. I finished. For my safety. For everyone's. I picked up the mandatory HOA membership order again and folded the corner up to the light. The seal was glossy, not crushed into the fibers. The county seal leaves a bruise. This one left a shine. That blink in the pines, I said, eyes still on the page. Is that part of your inspection too? I don't know what you mean, she answered. Sure you do. I looked at the guard who'd wandered off earlier. He was pretending to be fascinated by a rock. Do your bylaws authorize planting surveillance equipment on private land? Sir, the lawyer said, you're being uncooperative. I'm being exact. Peaton's heels clicked to the edge of the porch. The sound was metronomic precise. She leaned in until her perfume crowded out the smell of coffee. Something metallic hid behind it a trace of anxiety. You have until noon, she said. After that, your options change. She turned on her heel. The entourage gathered like iron to a magnet. Doors thumped, engines purred. The lead SUV spun dust into the light and slid off the pad. The other two followed. Minnie, Cliff number 1. That blink wasn't firelight, it was surveillance. I waited until the sound dwindled, the mountain taking back its own heartbeat. The rooster gave one clipped note and went quiet. Wind found the porch flag and made it talk. The paper edges rattled like teeth. I walked the steps slow, letting the boards announce each shift of weight. Gravel whispered under my boots. The road wore fresh tread patterns, aggressive street tires, city-bought, not made for ruts. At the pine I'd marked with a notch the year the coupe blew down, a matchbox-sized camera clung to a branch with a clear line to my door. A single red dot lived, then died. I didn't touch it. I photographed it from 3 angles and spoke the date, time, and heading into my phone. Old habits. Record first, argue later. Back at the gate, new dust settled on the crossbar. Someone had chalked a tiny mark on my mailbox post survey chalk, likely low, where a man measuring from the road might leave himself a compass to return to. I filed all of it in my head, the wrong paper, the wrong seal, the wrong blink, the wrong men pretending they belonged. The clock over my kitchen radio said 9:06 when I set the papers under the lamp. The lamp showed what the sun had hinted letterhead printed in a font that never saw a county office. The watermark said North Star Bond. Our county buys Summit Mill rag. I reached for the phone, thumbed the county clerk's number, and stopped. The line would still be open after I finished the first pass. I read every page. I underlined nothing. I trusted my eye. Not ink. On the last page, a signature looped in a way I'd seen on a case file years back. Same last name, different first. Occam's razor cut one way, a template lifted, scrubbed, reused. Expensive forgery. Amateur tells. I stepped back onto the deck. The valley glowed copper. The air smelled like wet wood and coffee gone cool. I listened to my land breathe and counted my breaths with it. Minnie, Cliff number 2. Her heels clicked off my porch like a countdown. The rooster called once more as if taking attendance. I glanced at the pines. The red dot slept. I pictured the convoy finding a wide spot in the road, phones out setting their next scene. People who rely on paper theater prefer predictable beats. That 3-hour clock, I said to the empty air, is your tell. A cloud moved. Light shifted. The gate's paint showed the tiny nicks time had carved. 47 years and still holding. I picked up the mandatory HOA membership order and slid it into a manila folder with the others. On the front, I printed in black marker, Green Valley HOA claimed authority. Under it, neat as I could make it to verify County Registry Business Filings Mining Division. The wind rose and fell like a chest breathing. The road unwound beneath my tires, the switchbacks giving way to smooth asphalt and the faint smell of rain on pavement. By the time I reached the county annex, the mountain silence had been traded for the drone of fluorescence leaking through glass. Inside, toner hung in the air. A sign read, County Clerk Records Division. I took a number from the dispenser, B37. When Morrison called, I stepped to her window. "Garrett Ashford," I said. "Got some papers, need a sanity check." She peered over her glasses. "Let's see." I slid the folder across. The top sheet bore a fat black seal. Filed 12/07, received 03/17. She tilted it under the desk lamp. Green Valley Mountain Estates. "Supposed HOA," I said. Her fingers danced over the keyboard. The monitor painted her glasses pale blue. After a few beats, she frowned. "No record, no filings, no CC&Rs, nothing by that name." "You sure?" She tried again. "Different spellings, different spaces, same empty screen. If it isn't in here, it doesn't legally exist." The deputy from records ambled over, coffee in hand. "Problem fraud," Morrison said. "Or a bad joke." "Feels organized for a joke," I added. Morrison fetched her red stamp, the kind that left dents. "Watch this," she said, pressing it hard onto a blank form. Thunk. The sound bit wood. "That's a real seal." "Yours?" She held up the HOA page. "Shines, doesn't bruise. If paperwork shakes, I said it's pretending." She grinned, then typed faster. "Commissioner Waller's name, he retired in 2019. "Exactly." The phone on her counter rang. She answered, voice sharpening. "Planning." "No, you cannot retro-approve an HOA that doesn't exist. I don't care who asked." She hung up, face gone pale. "Pressure?" I asked. "Always when someone's profits depend on fiction." The copier stopped mid-whir. The sudden quiet pressed around us until the wall clock filled it with a single tick. Silent beat. "Let's pull your plat," she said. "Township 9, North Section 34. I handed her a photo, my father's handwriting marking the boundary pin. She printed the official map, measured coordinates with a clear ruler, then nodded. "Matches exactly. Your fence is right where the county says it should be." "So their environmental offset is hot air," I said. "Hot air with a letterhead. Can you certify that?" She stamped 2 forms. Thunk. Thunk. Red spread like a slow sunrise. The deputy snapped photos. "You want this logged as evidence?" "Do it," Morrison said. Fraudulent claim against recorded property. Minnie Cliff number 1. The county database didn't know them. That was the first crack. A man in a sport coat paused by the door, eyes flicking from me to the forms. Then he vanished outside. Morrison wrote a summary note. Claimed, HOA authority disproved counterfeit seal 412/07. "You'll get a copy," she said. "I'll pick it up in person," I replied. "Signal's bad, up the ridge." Her colleague took another call, voice low. "They're asking if we logged an enforcement visit." "We don't log fairy tales," Morrison said. The deputy chuckled. "Summit Mill watermark's still ours," she nodded. "Counterfeit used North Star bond. Wrong texture, wrong sole." She handed me the stamped verification. The ink smelled like iron and permanence. "Keep that dry," she said. "It's worth more than their whole folder." Outside, wind tugged at the flag. Clouds sat heavy on the ridge like witnesses. I leaned against my truck, watching dust lift from a county cruiser idling nearby. The driver gave a short nod, more sympathy than help, and rolled away. I opened the folder again. 2 crisp stamps, 2 truths. The mountain had jurisdiction, not them. Minnie Cliff number 2, proof built quietly, the kind that holds in court even when no one's watching. Inside the cab, I called the number printed on the HOA notice. It rang once, twice, then clicked to silence. No voicemail, just breathing. I hung up. Back on the seat, the documents rustled against each other, fake and real, side by side, the difference measured in honesty. The road home shimmered under noon light. For a second, I thought of leaving it alone. Let the clerk handle it. But Morrison's words stayed. When money smells, the room pressure follows. The steering wheel felt warm. The clock on the dash ticked toward the deadline they'd set. If the county won't stop them, I said, turning the key, I will. Gravel spat from the tires as I pulled out. The neon diner sign buzzed between open and Opie fighting the rain. Each flicker splashed red across wet chrome and the fogged windows of a place that hadn't changed since the 80s. I pushed the door. The bell above it rang once tired. Landon Cross sat in the corner booth, sleeves rolled up, tie-loose laptop open beside a mug that had gone cold. "Uncle G, he said you look like you wrestled a filing cabinet. Feels about right." I slid the manila folder across the table. County clerk stamped these. "The HOA's fake." He flipped through the pages, eyes sharp like he'd been waiting for this. "Garamond. Not Palatino. English Landon." He pointed at the lettering. "County's standardized typefaces. Garamond's too elegant for bureaucracy. Fraud leaves fingerprints in fonts." I took a sip of coffee. It was burnt bitter, the kind of taste that wakes you for truth. They even forged the seal. He held the paper to the diner's fluorescent light. "See that halo around the stamp, offset press? Not ink. Whoever made this didn't use a home printer. That's industrial." Rain drummed on the windows, steady as a heartbeat. 3 SUVs, I said. "They gave me 3 hours to join their HOA or lose my land." Landon whistled low. "Sounds like someone wants your water rights." Mini Cliff number 1. Fraud had currency and my well was their mint. He pulled up a county map on his laptop. 2 glowing lines ran across the screen like veins. "Your boundary pin's here. Their plat moves it 2 feet west. 2 feet, that's enough to drag your well under their so-called common easement. Whoever filed it manipulated survey coordinates probably through a dummy GIS submittal. Who'd have access to that?" He looked up. "Anyone with a planning login or a friend who does. Remember the name on their paperwork, Knox." Landon nodded. "If he's tied to real estate holdings, this isn't isolated. Someone's running a counterfeit jurisdiction racket." The waitress topped off our mugs, leaving 2 rings on the table. "Coffee maps," I thought, territories of caffeine and lies. "Show me the watermark," I said. He flicked a UV light from his pocket and ran it across the page. The fake paper glowed faint blue. "The counties didn't. North Star Bond," he said. "Cheap import. County uses Summit Mill rag, no glow, so every layer's false. From fiber to font," he said. Silent beat. The neon buzz faded under thunder rolling somewhere west. "Why go to all this trouble?" I asked. Landon leaned back. "Because when you own the record, you own reality. They move a pin on paper, they move a fence in court." I stared at the window. Rain trailed like static. My father planted that pin with a transit and compass in '62. Landon clicked on a scanned signature. Commissioner Waller's endorsement, they lifted it from a 2017 zoning form. Mirrored it digitally. He's retired. 6 years now. "What about the notary?" He tapped the corner of the page. "Belonged to a woman who died in 2018. Registry's public." I exhaled through my nose. Ghosts and greed. Yeah. The American Partnership. Mini Cliff number 2. They hadn't just faked a form, they'd faked the people signing it. He reached for a napkin, drew 2 rectangles with a borrowed pen. "Here's your land," he said, marking an X. "Here's the altered plat." He shaded the gap. "This strip looks worthless until you realize it controls runoff and groundwater rights. You lose that, you lose leverage." I stared at the napkin. The diner lights trembled, reflected in the window glass like tiny sirens. "They moved the mountain," I said. "On paper," he replied. We sat a moment listening to rain hit aluminum awning. Landon closed his laptop. "We'll prove forgery by material analysis, fiber stock ink density, and digital metadata. You'll notarize originals tomorrow. I'll draft injunction papers Friday. You think the county'll act? They'll try," he said. "Until someone reminds them of budget season. Meaning pressure's currency, too." The waitress refilled our cups again. "Pie?" she asked. "Rain check," Landon said. When she left, he looked at me. "You could sell walk away." "Not after what they pulled," I said. He smiled. "Good. Just remember they'll get meaner before they get gone. I was a cop 30 years. Bureaucrats don't scare me." "They're worse than crooks," he said. "Crooks run when caught. Bureaucrats schedule it." The neon outside buzzed back to full life, throwing pink light across our table. Landon tucked the forged papers back into the folder. "Tomorrow, we confirm fiber samples. If they push again, we file for declaratory judgment." Declaratory. What? Legal confession they overstepped. I like confessions. He chuckled. "Then you'll love depositions." Rain softened. The diner's hum felt calmer, the kind that comes after a small victory no one else will see. "Why help me?" "Landon." "You've got bigger clients." He shrugged. "Because you taught me the first rule of evidence: never let liars own the paper." I nodded. "You learned well." He reached across the booth, tapped the folder. "Keep this safe. Someone paid real money to make it real. That means they'll want it back. Then I'll lock it tighter than their lies." He smiled, pushing from the booth. "I'll call when the lab confirms the print source." As he left, the bell jingled. The neon steadied at open, no more flicker. I traced the coffee ring between us, still wet, still mapping two territories, their fraud and my proof. Mini cliff number 3. Some battles start in diners, not courtrooms. Outside, the rain stopped like a held breath. I stepped into the night folder under my arm, every drop from the awning hitting the sidewalk in measured rhythm like a countdown restarting. The courthouse copier droned like a lazy hornet until it stopped mid-hum. The last page slid out ink, still wet, top-line stamped, temporary restraining order, number 21, C-147. Landon held it up. "Hot off the bench," he said. "Judge signed in chambers 3 minutes ago. I could still smell toner and the metal tang of new staples. Never thought I'd see my name above Patton at all." He grinned. "You always wanted top billing." Down the hall, the clerk's window buzzed. A clock over it blinked 03:15 p.m., the same time burned into our video file. Coincidence or symmetry? "Let's file it before symmetry gets smug," Landon said. We walked the marble corridor. Shoes echoed. The air smelled of burnt coffee from the cart near security. I felt the weight of every paper inside the folder, the counterfeit HOA seal, the plat, overlay the clip from my trail camera. The clerk stamped the header. Filed, Fee 07-03-17, 2 minutes difference from the footage. She slid it into the tray, fingers steady. "Orders active as of now," she said. "They can't contact or approach your property until the hearing." Landon added, "We've got 10 days. I nodded. 10 days felt short when liars owned copiers. Silent beat the printer behind her, quit leaving the corridor too quiet. Even paper waited. Mini cliff number 1. For the first time, the fraud had an official timestamp that wasn't theirs. Landon motioned toward the bench alcove. "Judge wants to review the video. Let's show it clean." We crossed into the small hearing room. The judge, a woman about my age, tapped a pen against her docket. "Mr. Ashford, you claim unauthorized surveillance." "Yes, Your Honor," I said. HOA representatives entered my ridge and mounted cameras without consent. "Do you have proof Landon connected his laptop to the projector?" The clip began grainy night vision timestamp 03:15 a.m. 2 men in safety vests lifted a drone case from a tailgate, their SUV tagged with the fake HOA crest. One adjusted a tripod toward my porch. The judge leaned forward. "Where was this recorded camera embedded in my boundary pin?" I said. "Smart," she murmured. Landon froze the frame. "Note the badge decals," he said. "Not county issue." She nodded slowly. "And this is your property?" "Yes, ma'am." The clerk took notes. The only sound was fluorescent buzz. "Mr. Cross, the judge said your TRO includes removal of all unauthorized devices within 100 feet of boundary markers." "Correct," Landon said. "We request immediate service." She signed with a single stroke. "Approved." Serve Ms. Peaton and Associates before sunset. The seal thumped onto the order. The sound carried like punctuation. Minnie, Cliff Number 2, Inc. made silence official. In the hall, Landon exhaled. You just won the first inning. I studied the embossed paper. Feels heavier than it should. That's justice on cardstock, he said. We passed the coffee cart. The vendor smiled. Looks like good news. Better than caffeine, I said. Outside the courthouse, rain freckles dotted the steps. Landon unlocked his car and loaded the folders. We'll serve Peaton's office first. She fronts the filings. She's not the boss, I said. No, he agreed, but she signs for the boss. As we pulled away downtown, lights flickered on amber against steel glass. Landon's phone buzzed. Unknown number. He put it on speaker. A voice said, You're making a mistake, counselor. Identify yourself. Click. Line dead. I smiled. Pressure travels fast. Good, he said. Means they're nervous. He turned toward the ridge road. Trees blurred under the wipers. You sure you want to serve it in person? I want to see their faces when the paper hits. We reached the valley gate by dusk. Same SUVs from before sat crooked under the pine. One guard pretended to text. Landon stepped out, first envelope in hand. Service of TRO number 21, C-147, he said, effective immediately. Peaton came down the gravel path, hair pinned tight, voice steady. You can't. He cut her off. We just did. I watched her read the header. Her expression thinned pride, shrinking like wet paper. You filmed us, she said. No, I said. My property filmed you. The guard shifted uncomfortable. We were told. You were told wrong, I said. That drone wasn't mine, Minnie, Cliff Number 3. Their tech turned witness. Peaton's SUV door slammed. Gravel spit from the tires as they left. The wind carried toner smell from the open envelope, fresh justice still drying. Landon leaned on the hood, watching taillights disappear. Think they'll test the order they can try, I said. Time codes don't lie. People do, he grinned. That's a closing argument. Just the start, I said, folding the TRO into my jacket. Tomorrow, we push for full injunction. Rain returned gentle now, cleaning the courthouse dust from the paper. In the rearview mirror, the ridge lights blinked once like a camera dying or a system rebooting. They brought microphones, I said. I brought evidence. The county hearing room smelled like paper and burnt coffee. Rows of folding chairs faced a dais lined with brass nameplates. Behind them, the county seal hung slightly crooked like even it didn't want to judge tonight. A projector hummed near the clerk's desk. Landon stood beside it checking cables. The crowd murmured neighbors, board members, half the sheriff's department. I spotted Scarlett Peaton and Knox 3 rows back, whispering behind a manila folder. The moderator rapped a gavel. This hearing addresses the jurisdictional dispute involving Green Valley Mountain Estates. A low ripple passed through the room. My hands didn't shake, but my pulse did. Mr. Ashford, the moderator, said you claim the HOA lacks legal standing. Yes, sir, I said, stepping to the lectern. And I have proof. Minnie, Cliff Number 1. Every fraud needs an audience before it collapses. Landon cued the first slide, our TRO stamped number 21, C-147, the county watermark shining under the projector light. This order, Landon said, confirms unauthorized surveillance on Mr. Ashford's property. Footage was collected at 03:15 a.m. from his boundary pin camera. The projector clicked. The screen filled with grainy black and white figures unloading gear. A hush swept the room. That's your team, Ms. Peaton, Landon said. Peaton stiffened. We were verifying compliance per covenant. Which covenant, Landon asked. There are none recorded. The moderator looked to the clerk. Do we have filings for Green Valley Mountain Estates? The clerk tapped her keyboard, frowned. No record, sir. Not under that name or any derivative. Murmurs grew into whispers. Someone coughed. Someone else muttered, Knew it. Peaton leaned forward. We filed through Knox Holdings. Checked the subdivision plat. Already did, Landon said. Surveys counterfeit. Coordinates shifted 2 feet. The stamp belongs to a retired commissioner. The judge from the TRO case, seated as special arbiter, folded her hands. "Mr. Knox, did you authorize these documents?" Knox adjusted his cufflinks. "I relied on staff representations." "Then your staff represented ghosts," she said. Laughter cracked the tension short and mean. Silent beat. A feedback squeal from the microphone pierced the room. Then silence, 3 long seconds, every face frozen. I stepped closer to the mic. "Time codes don't lie." "People do." The words landed like gravel. Landon switched slides. Signature overlays filled the screen, one genuine, one fake. He circled mismatched loops and strokes. Forgery visible to the naked eye. The moderator leaned to the arbiter. "We can't ignore that." "Nor should you," Landon said. "Jurisdiction requires record requires truth." The arbiter nodded. "Proceed." I held up the deed edges worn seal intact. "This deed predates your corporation by 40 years. It names the boundary of the well and the road. Not 1 inch of it lies within any HOA charter," Knox whispered to Peyton. She shook her head, jaw tight. Minnie, Cliff, number 2. They realized ink could outvote intimidation. The clerk verified the file number aloud. "Original deed recorded 1984 instrument, number 62134. The arbiter straightened. "Then the HOA's jurisdiction is invalid." Applause started slow, then rolled through the room like thunder. Knox tried to speak, but the mic cut him off with another burst of feedback, a mechanical shush. Peyton looked at me. "You think this fixes anything? It fixes the record," I said. Her voice dropped. "You humiliated us." I met her stare. "You did that yourselves." The moderator's gavel struck once. "Order. This board rules. Green Valley Mountain Estates. Homeowners Association, illegitimate and void. All property actions suspended effective immediately." Landon leaned toward me, whispering, "We did it." The arbiter handed me a signed copy. The seal caught light like a coin turning. Silent beat number 2. The crowd quieted again, breath holding between relief and disbelief. Peyton and Knox gathered their folders. Someone shouted, "Refund our dues." Another yelled, "Tear down." The gate community division spilled fast, anger, laughter, applause. The sound filled the hall until it felt like weather. I waited for quiet, then said, "Paper outlives noise." The phrase hung there. Even the projector stopped humming for a moment, bulb cooling in its own light. Minnie, Cliff number 3. "Justice doesn't echo, it settles." The moderator nodded toward me. "Mr. Ashford, your filings will serve as precedent for property record audits." "Glad to start the cleanup," I said. Outside evening painted the courthouse steps in gold. Landon handed me the folder. "Feels different holding it now." "Lighter," I said. He smiled. Weight of lies just left the room. Reporters waited near the door mics up. Someone asked, "What's next for you, Mr. Ashford?" I looked back at the courtroom windows where the lights still glowed. "Maybe sleep," I said, "then help my neighbors get their land back." A woman in the crowd clapped. Then another. The sound spread not as noise but as something earned. As we walked to the car, Landon said quietly, "You realize you just made a few enemies." Maybe I said, "But I made records first." He laughed. "Best defense there is." I looked up at the courthouse dome. The flag moved slow in the wind. The neon from a nearby diner flickered open again. The marshal handed me the right key. Not a metaphor this time, an actual brass key cold from the courthouse air. It caught the sun and threw a line of light across the marble steps. "Mr. Ashford," he said, voice steady. "Orders, signed, injunctions active. You can change every lock under your title." I nodded. Never thought paperwork could open something physical. He smiled slightly. "Paper first, then doors." Minnie, Cliff number 1. Legal victory was about to sound like metal. Camera crews waited at the bottom of the steps, their lenses glinting like polished judgment. Landon stood near the rail holding the injunction copy. "You're officially the first man in this county to evict an HOA," he said. "Let's not make it a trend," I replied. "Too late," he said, pointing to the crowd neighbors with folded notices, hoping the same light would land on their gates. Reporters shouted questions. "Mr. Ashford, what happens now?" "Locks get changed," I said. "Everything else follows." The marshal followed me to the truck. "Need an escort up the ridge?" "No," I said, "but you can witness." He nodded, stepping into his cruiser. The drive home wound through pine and memory. Each mile peeled back the noise of courtrooms until only the road hummed beneath the tires. When the cabin came into view, sunlight hit the iron gate, the same one Peaton's crew had padlocked 3 weeks ago. Landon met us there, tie-off sleeves rolled. "You sure you want press footage of this justice doesn't happen off camera?" I said. He grinned. "That's new for you. New day." We walked to the gate. The old padlock hung dull, stamped with their fake HOA logo. The marshal read from the order. "All property signage, locks, and surveillance under prior claim are to be removed immediately." I handed him the duplicate key. "You do the honors." He turned it in the shackle. Click. Metal yielded with a tired sigh. He dropped the lock to the dirt. Silent beat. The key hit stone, ringing once before quiet claimed it. Landon exhaled. "That sound, justice," I said. Justice sounds like metal clicking home. Neighbors gathered by the fence line. Someone clapped. Someone else wiped a tear. Even the reporter lowered her camera for a second, maybe to feel the air shift. Mini cliff number 2. Sometimes victory isn't loud, it's clean. We cut down the fake private community sign and leaned it against the post. The marshal photographed the removal for record. Landon filmed from a respectful distance, documenting chain of custody. Piton's name was still on the placard. I traced it once, then turned the board face down. The wind carried the smell of sun on wet soil. For the first time in weeks, the ridge didn't hum with surveillance, no blinking LEDs, no hidden microphones. Only a hawk circling above, lazy and free. The marshal locked the new padlock in place, sealed under the county tag. He handed me the spare key. "Keep that close." I slipped it onto my father's key ring. The metal chimed against old brass, the sound of generations lining up straight again. Landon walked over. "County press wants a statement. Tell them we're rebuilding fences the right way by hand, not by fiction." He nodded. "Good quote. Might outlive the story." "Hope so," I said. Paper outlives noise, but work outlives both. Reporters crowded the edge of the gravel drive. One asked, "Do you forgive them?" I looked at the broken sign at the mark the lock had left on the post. "Forgiveness comes after restitution," I said. "Right now, I'm just relieved." The marshal folded his copy of the injunction. "We'll file this footage for record. You did the county a favor today." I smiled. All I did was protect a line in the dirt. He shook my hand. "That's where every law starts." Mini cliff number 3. Ownership isn't power, it's responsibility restored. Neighbors lingered as the cameras packed up. One man, an old surveyor I knew, called out, "Guess the mountain's yours again, Garrett?" "It always was," I said. The ridge wind cut through the pines, carrying the faint ring of the key still spinning on my chain. For the first time, the air didn't feel watched. I turned toward Landon. "How long until the hearing's public?" "By morning. You'll wake up viral." Never thought that word could mean something good. He laughed. "Enjoy it while it's justice." We watched the last van roll down the road. The sunlight caught the courthouse seal on the marshal's cruiser before it disappeared around the bend. The gate swung once on its hinges, slow and smooth. It creaked, then stilled. For the first time in weeks, I said quietly static, turned to silence. Landon looked up at the sky. And silence sounds good on you. The same chairs, but this time they stood for me. Town hall smelled like coffee burned hours ago. The fluorescent lights buzzed with that particular kind of boredom only government buildings know. I'd stood in this room once as an accused man, and now I stood here with the deed, the boundary pin, and the truth. Landon sat beside me, sleeves rolled again, smile small but proud. "Full circle," he whispered. The moderator banged the gavel once. "We're reconvened for closure on case 01207 Green Valley Mountain Estates." No one moved at first. Then someone in the back clapped a single sound that grew row by row until even the clerk joined in. The echo traveled up the rafters and came back like thunder, politely waiting its turn, Mini-Cliff number 1. The same paper that once accused me now cleared the air. At the front table, a county treasurer flipped through ledger pages. Harrison from the EPA sat beside him, nodding as he compared signatures. All reimbursements verified, Harrison said. Funds collected under fraudulent covenant returned. The treasurer passed envelopes to a clerk. Refunds will be mailed by end of week. HOA account frozen pending audit. Landon leaned close. That's your echo, Garrett money going backward. Better direction than before I said. He smiled. Your name's clean. County minutes will reflect it. The moderator read from the docket. It is further noted that Ms. Scarlett Peaton and Mr. Knox are barred from acting as agents of any community authority for a period of 5 years. A hush followed. The clerk lifted a pen. Shall I strike their names from the ledger? The moderator nodded. Strike them. The pen moved once across each line. Ink scratching final. Silent beat. The sound of the stroke faded, leaving air that smelled like new paper and old redemption. On the table beside me lay the old boundary pin, cleaned, labeled, restored. Next to it, the deed edges repaired seal re-embossed. The circle closed quietly. Harrison stood. Mr. Ashford, he said, you've set precedent for record reclamation. Few citizens push this far. Didn't plan to, I said. Just couldn't look the other way. Courage is contagious, he said, signing the final verification, especially when the papers are real. The room broke into applause again, louder this time. Mini-Cliff number 2 noise. Once weapon now became gratitude. Landon rose with me, shaking Harrison's hand. EPA involvement helps future cases, he said. Harrison nodded. We'll audit land filings statewide. Fraud won't sleep easy. When he left, Landon turned to me. Guess that's our mentor arc done. You're the mentor now, I said. I'm just the example. He laughed. Bad example with good paperwork. We stood near the back wall where a bulletin board still held faded notices, the old HOA meeting flyer among them. I pulled it down, folded it twice, and set it beside the struck ledger. Every fake has its expiration date, Landon said. Yeah, I said, and every truth has to be renewed. The moderator approached with a sealed envelope. Certified copy of your reinstated deed, he said. Filed and cross-referenced this morning. I opened it carefully. The embossed seal caught the fluorescent light, same shape as before, but brighter. Landon read the line at the bottom. Title confirmed and boundary unaltered. That must sound good. It does, I said, like the ridge breathing again. A few citizens came forward, faces I knew from mailboxes and fence lines. One older man clasped my hand. We watched it all, Garrett. You didn't just win your line, you gave us ours back. I only started it, I said. He shook his head. Someone had to stand up first. Mini-Cliff number 3. Leadership sometimes looks like stubbornness until it works. As the crowd thinned, the clerk began turning off lights. The fluorescent hum softened to a low whisper. Think you'll sleep now? Landon asked. Eventually, he smiled. You ever notice how the system sounds different when it works? Like what? Less hum, more silence. We walked outside into the evening. The courthouse dome glowed across the street. The flag on the pole fluttered once, then settled. The air smelled clean ozone after storm paper, after ink. I looked back at the hall doors closing behind us. Funny, I said. All that noise and it ends with quiet. That's how you know it's justice, Landon said. He offered his hand. I took it. The handshake wasn't ceremonial, it was steady human. As we stepped into the streetlight, I thought about the first notice on my porch, the fake stamp at the countdown clock. Everything since had been one long reply. The ridge waited somewhere behind the dark reel as ever. I still had to put up the fence again, fix the mailbox, patch the shed. Small work, honest work. Back to building, I said. Landon nodded. Back to life. And when the door of the hall finally latched shut, the echo lingered, not applause, not anger, just the sound of something set right. Dawn again, the mountain ridge burned gold where the sun broke through the mist. Steam rose from my coffee like a small flag of peace. On the gate hung a new brass plaque transfer order. Title, Restored. It caught the morning light the same way the marshal's key once did, scattering it back across the gravel. I'd mounted it myself last night, screws turned slow and deliberate. The sound had echoed down the valley metal into woodproof, into place. The rooster crowed from the shed roof, same as the first morning this all began. Landon wasn't here. He'd taken the early flight to Denver, said it was time I had the porch to myself again. He left a note on the counter. Keep the gate open this time. I smiled at that. Minnie Cliff number 1. Peace doesn't erase the past, it reframes it. I walked down to the fence where the grass still bent from yesterday's rain. The new lock gleamed under dew. Beside it hung the keys, now more symbol than tool. I laid them gently on the plaque. For a moment I just listened. Wind slipped through the pines, brushing the metal, making a faint ringing like distant applause. The air smelled of wet soil and wood smoke. Every sense felt honest again. A truck engine hummed far below county maintenance, maybe checking lines. I used to tense at that sound. Now it meant routine, not threat. The ridge beyond the lake shimmered no fences, no cameras. Just land, returned to its simplest shape, silent beat. The wind stretched across the valley, carrying the soft rattle of the plaque chain. I sat on the porch rail, coffee cup, warming my palms. For months I'd lived inside paper, fighting words with words. Now the paper had turned back into land. Landon's voice echoed faint in my head. Justice sounds like metal clicking home. He'd been right. But justice also sounded like quiet, the kind that didn't need gavel or witness. The sky brightened to full blue. I watched the reflection on the plaque shift with the light like the day itself was reading it. A neighbor's pickup slowed on the road. The driver waved. I raised my cup in return. Minnie Cliff number 2. Community begins where fear stops waving first. On the porch table lay the old deed, laminated now, framed under glass. It wasn't fancy. The edges still showed the burn mark from the copier. But it was real. The transfer order underneath it bore a new seal embossed deeper than the rest, as if the county wanted permanence carved into the record. I thought about Pete and Knox, the fake HOA sign now stacked behind the shed. Maybe they'd learned something, maybe not. Either way, the mountain had outlasted them. I took a sip of coffee and let the heat settle. The rooster crowed again, same note, same rhythm, as if rehearsing the bookend of this story. Somewhere in the trees a camera lens still hung, forgotten its red light, long dead. I left it there on purpose, a monument to false authority. From here you could see the whole valley, the creek, the mailbox, the long gravel drive where they once parked those black SUVs. Now it was just a road again, Minnie Cliff number 3. Everything complicated eventually remembers how to be simple. I walked back to the gate, fingers brushing the edge of the plaque. The engraving was shallow, but sure. Property restored under court order favor 1207. The wind pushed gently against the sign like reading it out loud for me. Finally, someone fought back, I said. The words weren't for the camera or the court or even the record. They were for the ridge, the sky, the quiet, for anyone who'd ever been told to give up their ground. A jay called from the pine, sharp and free. The echo faded down the slope, past the mailbox, into the open day. I left the keys where they rested. Let the sun take them. The wind shifted once more, brushing through the valley, carrying the faint metallic whisper of justice. The sun caught the brass plaque at the gate, its seal embossed deep enough to hold the morning. The air smelled of pine and coffee, ordinary again finally. I traced the engraved words, transfer order. Title, restored. Feeling how justice had shape, weight, and sound. What began as outrage had ended in order. The paper that once cornered me now protected everyone who'd watched. Finally, someone fought back. Justice isn't loud, it's steady. Share your HOA story below your map might help someone redraw theirs.